Here's our Unit 4 summary notes. So we're going to kind of go through the different problems we've looked at throughout Unit 4. The first questions we're going to do, we're going to simplify, multiply, and divide. So let's look at this first question. We look at the symbol in the middle, and it tells us that we're going to multiply. So when we multiply, the first thing we need to do is factor. So let's go ahead and factor the top. The difference of squares. Let's factor the bottom. We have a GCF. This trinomial. See, we have an x and an x, so it multiplies to 14, and so it's going to be a plus 7 plus 2, and then I have the 5 minus x. Now we can look for which piece is reduced. So the x plus 7 is reduced. And then I notice that 5 minus x and x minus 5 are opposites. So I can take out the negative, switch the signs, then those reduce. And what am I left with? On top, I'm left with x plus 5 times x plus 2. I have a negative and a 4, and that's my answer. Okay, let's go ahead and look at the next example. Here, I notice that this is division. And when we're dividing, we need to remember keep, flip, change. So go ahead and go through those steps. Keep the first, flip the second, change to multiplication. When you do that, you should get c plus 4 over c squared plus 5c plus 6. We're going to flip the second. And then we're changing the multiplication. Go ahead and pause the video so the students can have time to try and factor the top and bottom of each of these fractions. Now that you've had time to factor them, you should have gotten the top we can't factor here. This bottom piece is a trinomial. So we have c, multiply 6, that's going to be a 3 and a 2 plus plus, because 3c plus 2c is 5c, times this top one, let's see, 2c squared, I'm going to need a 2c and a c. And a 3, if I put the 3 here, I need a 1 here, so that's 3c and 2c, but I have to have a negative 3, so I think, here, let's do it. Okay, so that gives me a 6c minus c is 5c. That works. The bottom here, I have a GCF of 3c, and I get c plus 4. Now that I'm to this point, I can simplify. C plus 4, C plus 4, C plus 3, C plus 3. And what do we have left? We have, wrong color. 2C minus 1 over C plus 2, and then the 3C goes in front. Okay, so for the next example, we just have a bunch of monomials, so we're just going to reduce the fractions and subtract our exponents. What goes into 84 and 18? Let's try 2. That gives me a 9, that gives me a 42. What else? I can do 3, so I'm going to divide by 3, so that gives me 3. 42 divided by 3. 14. So that reduces to 14 over 3. And then here I'm going to have, so I have 14 over 3. And then I'm going to do 3 minus 1. That's going to give me 2. So I have an x squared. And then I have 4 minus 6, but they're on the bottom. So that gives me a y squared on the bottom. And then this z crosses out with one of these. So I'm left with 1z on the bottom. Okay, let's go to adding and subtracting. So with multiplying and dividing, pretty much we factor, cross things out. The only thing we have to remember about the dividing is the keep, flip, change. All right, adding and subtracting. Okay, key thing, we always have to find a common denominator. Get this first one. I noticed, let's always also, we need to factor our denominators. Our denominators should be in factored form. So can I factor this denominator? We're going to have n plus 2, n plus 2. They are the same. We have a common denominator. So we can just add straight across. So we have n plus 2 on top. And then our denominator is n plus 2 times n plus 2. And we can note this and this, that becomes a 1. So I get 1 over n plus 2. All right, go ahead and try, give them time to work on the second one a little bit. We have to find that common denominator. So if you're stuck, when we look at a common denominator, we think, okay, this denominator is t squared, this is t minus 1. This side is going to need to be multiplied by a t squared. This one's going to need to be multiplied by a t minus 1. So I'm going to multiply here by t minus 1 over t minus 1. And I'm going to multiply this one by t squared, t squared. What's our common denominator? T squared times t minus 1. This fraction, I get 5 times t minus 1 minus 4 times t squared. All right, we can distribute. I'm also going to put in standard form. So the negative 4t squared is going to go first. That's a positive 5t and a negative 5. Over t squared times t minus 1. And that's our answer. Let's look at the next one. Notice this is the one where these are similar but opposite. So go ahead and give that a try to remember what we did there. Okay, so since they're opposite, we can make this negative and switch our signs. Now our denominator is x minus 2. What do I have on the top here? 4. And this is negative times 2x minus 3. Go ahead and distribute the negative. Combine like terms. Can I factor the top at all? No, so that is my answer. Let's go to the next one. For this one, we're going to be subtracting. And so what we have to do first is factor our denominator. So let's go ahead and factor it. That's going to be x minus 3x minus 4. 3 times 4 is 12. Negative 3x, negative 4x gives me negative 7x. C. It's going to be x plus 5 minus 3. And so now let's think about what is our common denominator going to be? Well, see, this one's x minus 3x minus 4. It's missing an x plus 5, so we're going to multiply it by x plus 5. What's this one missing? Looks like an x minus 4, so I'm going to be multiplying this by x minus 4. Go ahead and make our common denominator. All right, so here's our numerator. We're going to have x plus 5 times x squared minus 3x minus 2x plus 10 times x minus 4. So now we have to FOIL both of these out. I get x to the third minus 3x squared plus 5x squared minus 15x. And then minus, and everything I'm going to get right now, I'm going to put in parentheses. So go ahead and try that. Multiply that one out. So you should get 2x squared minus 8x plus 10x minus 40 all over our denominator. All right. We have to then distribute the negative. So I get minus 2x squared plus 8x minus 10x plus 40. Again, so we distribute the negative. Minus 2x squared plus 8x. The negative makes this a negative. The negative makes this one a positive. All right, let's combine like terms. The x to the third, no other x to the thirds. Negative 3x squared, 5x squared, negative 2x squared. Those all actually cross out to 0. Negative 15x, 8x, negative 10x. See, that gives us negative 7x, so negative 17x, and then plus 40. And that's the answer. I know it's a long problem. Key thing to remember though, factor the denominator. To find your least common multiple. All right, so now we're moving on to solving. So one thing we can do is look for our least common multiple. But before we do that, we have to factor the denominators. So this one's factored, so this is n times n minus 1. Let's go ahead and note what our LCM is. I'm going to need an n plus 1, and I already have an n over there, so I need an n minus 1. And I'm going to multiply this by every single fraction. And we're doing that to clear the fraction. All right, so we're going to do n times n plus 1 times n minus 1, n times n plus 1 times n minus 1, n times n. Oh, can't see the left. Here, n crosses out, so 2 times all of that, plus this n plus 1 crosses out, so I have n times n minus 1 times n plus 2 equals this n crosses out, this n minus 1 crosses out, so I have negative 2 times n plus 1. All right, so now we're going to FOIL and then multiply by 2. We have n squared minus n plus n minus 1. And then I'm going to distribute this n, so I get n squared minus n. Then I'm going to distribute this, negative 2n minus 2. These cross out. I'm going to distribute the 2, so I get 2n squared minus 2. I have to FOIL that out. Plus n to the third plus 2n squared minus n squared minus 2n. All right, let's combine like terms on the left side of the equation. Remember, we're solving an equation. I have n to the third. That gives me my n squared. 2 plus 2 is 4, minus 1 is 3n squared. Minus 2n minus 2 equals negative 2n minus. All right, so whenever we have something higher than just an n, we have an n to the third, we're going to get set equal to 0, and we're going to have to factor. I'm going to add the 2n over, add the 2 over. See, I get n to the third plus 3n squared equals 0. So now we factor. Here I have a GC off of n squared, and I'm left with n plus 3. See, this gives me n equals 0, n equals negative 3. And now we can't just, here I'm going to zoom out so you can see the whole problem a little bit better. And we can't just say these are our answers. We have to check our extraneous solutions. See, here n cannot equal 0, n cannot equal negative 1, n cannot equal positive 1. That means this is not our answer, and that is our answer. Let's go to the next one. Okay, so note here, only one fraction because this is over 1. Which means we can cross multiply. So I'm going to go ahead and leave you to do that. You have x plus 2 equals 5 times 1 minus 2x. And go ahead and continue solving. Okay, we should distribute. Minus 2, add 2x. I get 3x equals 3. So x equals 1. Check your extraneous solutions. Let's see. 1 minus 2x cannot equal 0. Add that 1 cannot equal 2x. Cannot equal 1/2. We are good. All right, now we're going to go ahead and work on the word problems. The grounds people need to prepare and chalk the football field before Friday night's game. One worker working alone can prepare the field in 7 hours. So we're going to say worker 1, 7 hours. Well, the other worker, so worker 2, in 5 hours. How long will it take them if they were to prepare and chalk the field together? So remember, this is where we look at their rate. So their rate is the total time over 7. The time it takes divided by 7 is their rate. So this is going to be the time over 5. So we do individual rate plus individual rate equals the job done. So T over 7 plus T over 5 is 1 job done. We need to find our LCM. This is over 1. We need to find our geometries are 5 and 7, so that's 35. So I'm going to multiply all of these by 35. 7 and 35, that's going to give me a 5. 5 and 35, that's going to give me a 7. 5t plus 7t equals nothing here, so 35 times 1 is 35. 12t equals 35. And we're going to round to the nearest tenth. 35 over 12, which is about 2.9 hours. Now let's look at the next type of problem, average cost. A group of friends rented bowling lanes for a birthday party. It cost $60 for group X to rent the lanes. So X people, $60. An additional 8 friends arrived unannounced. So X additional 8 plus 8 people. And it lowered the cost by $2 per person. So our adjustment is minus $2. And this was still $60. All right, so what was the average of the original group? Well, the original group split $60 by X people. This group split $60 by X plus 8 people. That's the new group. So I have the average of the original minus the adjustment, minus $2. Average of the new group is 60 over X plus 8. Here, LCM, I need an X, and I need an X plus 8. We're going to multiply that by every fraction. Go ahead and pause the video so that they can continue on and try and solve from here. Now that you've had time, here the X's cross out. So I get 60 times X plus 8. Nothing crosses out here, so I get minus 2X times X plus 8 equals the X plus 8 crosses out, so I get 60X. So now we're going to distribute 60X plus 480 minus 2X squared minus 16X equals 60X. I have a quadratic, which means we're going to factor, so I have to get it set equal to 0. So minus the 60X. And then I'm also going to put this in standard form. So it gives me negative 2X squared minus 16X plus 480 equals 0. And again, I put that in standard form. I like to divide everything by negative 2. X squared minus, minus myself, plus 8X minus 240 equals 0. And I think 20 and 12, X plus 20, X minus 12. See, 20X is minus 12, that gives us a positive 8. So what do we get as our answer? X equals negative 20, positive 12. We're not going to have a 20, so our answer is 12 people. Okay, let's go ahead and review our graphing. So let's first recall our parent graph. Our parent graph, we have our x-intercept, or our vertical asymptote, our horizontal asymptote, and we have no x-intercepts and no y-intercepts. We have a point that's one right, one up, and this hugs, and hugs. And again, this one hugs and hugs. Okay, so let's see what happens when this shifts. Go ahead and try this. Pause the video so that they can work through it and look for the shifts and find all of the pieces. Sorry about that. So this got shifted left 3, this one down 2. Let's graph this. So our asymptote, we shifted left 3, so that's the horizontal one shifted left 1, 2, 3. This one went down 2, 1, 2. All right. Also notice that we have no stretch. So that means our point is up 1 over 1 and over 1 right there. And we can hug our asymptote. I'm going to zoom out a little bit. Okay. So our domain and range, we go from negative infinity. Looking at my x values, negative infinity. And then we stop at, negative 3. This curve picks back up at negative 3 and goes to infinity. Remember, range is bottom to top. We start at negative infinity. We stop at negative 2. Pick back up at negative 2. And go to positive infinity. Our vertical asymptote, that's this one. X equals negative 3. See, our horizontal asymptote, that's y equals negative 2. For our y-intercept, x-intercept, we set y equal to 0. I'm going to do that work over here. First step I would do is add the 2 over. And then we can put this over 1 and cross multiply. 2 times x plus 3 equals 1. Now we're going to distribute. 2x plus 6 equals 1. Minus the 6. 2x equals negative 5, so x equals negative 5 over 2. So this is negative 5 over 2, comma, 0. All right, where are we less than 0? So remember, less than 0 is looking at our x-axis and asking what's below it. This portion of our curve is below it. So what's this from? This is from negative infinity, and it stops at negative 3. But then we notice that this little piece is also below. So we have to pick this point, and what's that point? That point is the x-intercept, negative 2.5 to infinity. All right, now when are we greater than 0? So when are we above the x-axis? Well, that's just this little chunk here. And that's between negative 3 and negative 2.5. When are we decreasing? Well, we're decreasing here. How do I write this chunk? Negative infinity to negative 3. We never equal negative 3. We just kind of get really close. And this chunk's decreasing. So where is that? That's negative 3 to positive infinity. And we're not increasing. Okay, let's do the bottom little box. Go ahead and from that function, write your vertical asymptote and your horizontal asymptote. Since we shifted right 7 and up 8, let's picture a graph. So the vertical one moved right 7, and then that one's up 8. So the vertical one, x equals 7. This one, y equals 8. Go ahead and practice the solving for a specific variable. Now when we do this, we're going to multiply by the LCM. So what's the LCM? I need a W, X, and Y. So W, X, Y. So we're going to multiply all three by W, X, Y. Here, W's cross out. And I get XY times 1. Here are X's cross out. So I get 3WY plus, here are Y's crossed out, so I get WX. Now I want to solve for W. Here I can factor out W. So I get XY equals, I have a GCF of W, and I'm left with 3Y plus X. And then to get W by itself, I'm going to divide by 3Y plus X. So W equals XY over 3Y plus X. Solve for R. For this one, I notice I can make a proportion, put this over 1, and then cross multiply. So I get FR squared equals GM1, M2. I want to get R by itself, so I'm going to divide by F. R squared equals GM1, M2, square root. R equals GM1, M2.